Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Financial Freedom, the podcast where we dive into ways to solve money problems and achieve financial independence. I'm Andy, and with me as always is my wonderful co-host, Mandana. How are you today?
Feeling great, Andy. I'm really excited about this episode because we're tackling something that most people can relate to: money problems and how to get on the path to financial freedom.
Right, and who doesn't want to be financially independent? The idea of not having to stress about money is a dream for many. But here's the thing. There are practical steps anyone can take to make that dream a reality. We'll be talking about some tried and true strategies from best-selling books that are proven to work.
Exactly. These books offer a roadmap, and the best part is they're full of actionable advice, not just theory.
So today, we're going to break down strategies to solve common money problems like debt, lack of savings, and poor spending habits. Plus, we'll suggest a few books that can guide you to financial independence. We've also got some great listener questions lined up, so stick around.
Andy, let's start with why people face money problems in the first place. What do you think are some of the key reasons?
Well, I think one major issue is a lack of financial literacy. Many of us were never taught how to manage money, and it shows. We don't really learn how to budget, invest, or even avoid unnecessary debt. It's like we're thrown into adulthood without a guide.
Totally agree. And speaking of guides, that's why reading up on personal finance is so crucial. One of the best books for this is The Total Money Makeover by Dave Ramsey. Ramsey gives a step-by-step plan for getting out of debt and building wealth, and one of the key things he emphasizes is budgeting and living below your means.
Yeah, I love that book. It's practical and doesn't sugarcoat anything. Ramsey's Baby Steps plan is super popular because it simplifies things. For instance, the first step is to save $1,000 for an emergency fund. You'd be surprised how many people don't have even that saved.
Right. Having that emergency fund is crucial to avoid going into more debt when unexpected expenses come up. And Ramsey's big focus is paying off debt as fast as possible using what he calls the debt snowball method, which means paying off the smallest debt first and building momentum as you go.
It's a great method for getting rid of debt, but there's also another fantastic book for tackling debt and understanding your financial picture, and that's Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin. Have you read that one?
I have, and I love how Robin talks about the emotional and psychological aspects of money. One of her core principles is that you should think about every purchase in terms of life energy.
Exactly. It makes you think, is this purchase really worth the amount of time and energy I put into earning that money? It helps you develop a healthier relationship with spending, and that's the first step in solving a lot of money problems.
So Andy, let's talk about budgeting, which is something a lot of people struggle with. How can someone get started if they've never budgeted before?
Great question. Budgeting can seem intimidating, but one method I find really simple is the 50-30-20 rule, which is also explained in Elizabeth Warren's book, All Your Worth: The Ultimate Lifetime Money Plan. It's a simple system where 50% of your income goes to needs, 30% to wants, and 20% to savings or paying off debt.
That's such a straightforward approach, and the best part is it's flexible. You don't have to be super strict, but it gives you a good starting point.
Right. It's easy to track, and once you get into the habit, it almost runs itself. Another book that focuses on budgeting is I Will Teach You to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi. His approach is all about living your best life while still saving and investing.
Ramit Sethi is really practical, especially for millennials. He talks about the concept of conscious spending, where you cut back on things that don't matter to you, but spend more on what you actually enjoy, without feeling guilty.
And that's key, right? A lot of people think budgeting means restricting yourself, but it's really about prioritizing. Ramit's big on automation too, like automatically transferring money into savings and investment accounts each month so you don't have to think about it.
Automation makes saving so much easier. Plus, it eliminates the temptation to spend that money.
Okay, let's shift gears and talk about debt. This is probably the biggest money problem people face. What's your take on tackling debt, Mandana?
I think the first step is accepting the reality of it. Debt can feel overwhelming, but once you face it head on, you can start creating a plan. And one book that's great for this is The Debt-Free Lifestyle by Howard Dvorkin. It breaks down strategies to get out of credit card debt, student loans, and mortgages.
Good choice. And like we mentioned earlier with Dave Ramsey, the debt snowball method works really well for a lot of people. But if you're more into numbers, you might prefer the avalanche method, where you focus on paying off debts with the highest interest rate first.
That's a great point. Both methods are effective, but it really depends on your personality. If you need small wins to stay motivated, the snowball method is great. If you're all about the math, the avalanche might be the way to go.
And once you've gotten rid of your debt, you can start thinking about building wealth. That's where another classic book comes in, Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki.
Ah, a classic. Kiyosaki's book is so important because it teaches you to think differently about money and assets.
Exactly. One of the biggest takeaways from Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the idea of making your money work for you instead of just working for money.
Right. He talks about the importance of investing in assets, whether it's real estate, stocks, or starting a business. It's all about creating passive income so that you're not just trading time for money.
So we've talked about getting rid of debt and budgeting. Now let's dive into the fun stuff, investing.
Yes, this is where people can really start to build wealth and achieve financial independence. What's a good book for someone who's just starting out with investing?
I'd say The Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Collins. This is a fantastic book for beginners. It explains why index funds are a great choice for most people and why investing doesn't have to be complicated.
I love that one. Collins makes investing seem so much less intimidating. His approach is very much set it and forget it, which is perfect for people who don't want to spend all their time managing investments.
Exactly. He advocates for low-cost index funds, which is basically buying a tiny piece of many different companies. That way, you're not putting all your eggs in one basket. And over time, the stock market tends to go up.
Another book I really like is The Millionaire Next Door by Thomas Stanley and William Danko. It's not just about investing, but it really opens your eyes to the habits of everyday millionaires.
That's such a great point. Most millionaires aren't flashy. Many of them live modest lives, invest wisely, and avoid debt. It's a real eye-opener.
And it shows that becoming wealthy isn't necessarily about earning a massive salary, but about managing what you have wisely and investing consistently.
All right, so we've covered a lot today. Budgeting, getting out of debt, and starting to invest. But how do you tie it all together? How do you actually achieve financial independence?
I think it comes down to consistency. You don't have to be perfect, but you have to be consistent. Whether it's following a budget, sticking to an investment plan, or chipping away at debt, it's about doing the right things over time.
That's such an important point. One book that ties all of this together is Financial Freedom by Grant Sabatier. He talks about how to accelerate your path to financial independence through side hustles, saving more and investing smarter.
Sabatier's story is super inspiring because he went from having just a few dollars in his bank account to being financially independent in 5 years. And it wasn't because he earned millions, but because he was disciplined and strategic.
Exactly. And the good news is anyone can do this. You don't have to win the lottery or inherit a fortune. It's about making small, smart decisions that add up over time.
So true. And for anyone listening, remember that financial freedom is a journey. It takes time, but every step you take gets you closer to your goals.
All right, before we wrap up, let's take a few questions from our listeners.
Yes, we love hearing from you. Our first question is from Sarah, who asks, "What's the best way to start investing if I only have a small amount of money?"
Great question, Sarah. Even if you don't have a lot to start with, you can begin by investing in low-cost index funds like the ones J.L. Collins talks about in The Simple Path to Wealth. You can start with as little as $50 or $100 in some cases.
Exactly. Many apps like Vanguard or Fidelity allow you to set up automatic investments with small amounts of money. It's all about getting started, even if it's small.
Here's another question from Ben who asks, what's the biggest mistake people make when trying to solve money problems?
I'd say one big mistake is trying to do everything at once. You don't have to pay off all your debt, start investing, and save for an emergency fund all at the same time. Focus on one goal, then move to the next.
Yeah, and I'd add that people sometimes ignore their money problems, thinking they'll go away. But facing them head-on and making a plan is always better. And that's a wrap for today's episode of Financial Freedom. We hope you found these tips helpful and feel inspired to take control of your financial future.
Yes, and remember, financial independence is within reach, no matter where you're starting from. It just takes time, discipline, and the right strategies.
Be sure to check out the books we mentioned today for more in-depth advice. And if you have any questions or topics you want us to cover, feel free to send them in.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Until next time, stay smart with your money.
Take care, and here's to your financial freedom.